Well, 4 of the 6 suspects accused of rioting in Atlanta over the weekend have now been denied bond. All 6 are facing felony domestic terrorism charges. They're on your screen here. Rioters got violent during a demonstration over the death of an environmental activist. This was last week. And those activists have been camped out in the woods reportedly for months, trying to block construction of a new police training facility. One of those young activists was shot and killed by police after he allegedly opened fire on them during a standoff. Now, local police saying this: some of the rioters this weekend were armed, and they were armed with explosives. Several businesses suffered serious damages in the area. Several of the suspects are accused of even being Antifa members. So we'll bring in Chris Carr. He is the Attorney General in the state of Georgia. AG, good to see you. Thanks so much for coming on. So we talk about...
Great to see you.
You too. So we talk about 5 of the 6 there charged with domestic terrorism. How involved is your office in this case?
Well, again, thanks for having me on. We're taking the lead as it relates to the prosecution. We're working with the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office as well, but we're working with our great members of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, State Patrol, Department of Natural Resources, Atlanta Police, and DeKalb County Police. Because look, this has gone on long enough. We're talking about, as you mentioned, a training center for police officers, which means not just better trained and safer officers, but a safer community. This is the conversation that's been going on for the past couple of years in the United States. And here we've stepped up and making sure that law enforcement is well trained. And now we have individuals that are coming from around the country that are engaging in violence. And it's just unacceptable, and we're not going to tolerate it.
What is your thought on that? You touched on it just now, but many of these, from what has been reported, they're not even from Georgia. They're not even from the Atlanta area. They're from out of state doing harm in your great state of Georgia.
Well, that's right. And we know it's a well-funded national and well-organized national organization. We've got folks from Maine and Pennsylvania and Tennessee and Oregon. But the bottom line is this. We are not Oregon. We are not Washington or California. You cannot come to our state, destroy property, break our laws, shoot police officers, and not be held accountable. That's why you've seen the charges that we filed. We filed domestic terrorism charges as well as others. I am confident that the facts will bear that out in court. Yeah. But you cannot come to our state. And if you do, you will be charged. You can and you will be charged. And that's exactly what we're doing.
These charges, domestic terrorism, a felony, if they do stick, what could be the punishment for that?
Up to 35 years in prison.
Wow. Not to be taken lightly. We'll continue to follow that. I wanted to get your thoughts on how this was covered on one of the cable news networks. Running this story, they were covering the breaking news as typically a news organization does. You may have seen it. I'll play it for you. This is David Peisner, a freelance journalist, said this on CNN after the Georgia riot. Here's that.
I think that there's a real blurring of the lines in the use of the word violence. Is property destruction violence? To some people, it certainly is. But you know, this idea that breaking windows or other acts of property destruction are the same as actual violence against humans it's kind of a dangerous and slippery concept. You keep using these words, violent, and it gives the impression. I mean, the only violence or the only acts of violence against people that I saw were actually police tackling protesters.
Well, someone owns those cars. Someone owns those businesses. So people were, in a sense, attacked in this. AG Chris Carr of Georgia, your response to that?
That's absolutely absurd. Peaceful protesters use words. It's simple. It's a bright line. I will defend your right to stand at the courthouse steps and disagree with the government, protest, say what you want. I may disagree with it, but I'll still defend it. But the minute you light a police car on fire, you throw a rock through a window, you shoot somebody, that is an act of violence and it is a crime, and you must be held accountable. Again, they may not hold folks accountable in Oregon or elsewhere, but in the state of Georgia, you're going to be held accountable.
Domestic terrorism charges, as you said, up to 35 years. Very serious to be held accountable there. That is Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr joining us live on that. We'll continue to follow the investigation. AG, thank you.
Coming up,